Hello and thanks for joining us for another edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Mitchell Ringos. The township of Ignace is facing a crisis of democracy, and several recent council meetings have been canceled without explanation, and citizens there are worried about dysfunction among the mayor, councillors and town staff. Lee Noonan reports.
Ignace OPP confirmed they were made aware of a situation at the local municipal office on March 10th, but that no charges were laid. They suggest the matter was a labor issue. There are 5 members of Ignace Council, including Mayor Bill Gascon, all elected in October when the previous council was all voted out. None have responded to requests for comment. Residents of Ignace say that with rumors and accusations flying in all directions and little official information available, they don't know what's going on at Town Hall, and they're losing confidence in their leaders.
There's so many stories out there and you don't know whether half of them are true or not.
There's no accountability. They all ran that, everything would be seen, and we don't have any idea what's going on.
Mom and Dad are fighting and disputing and can't get along. It affects the children. And so it's affecting us people.
I've been having actually sleep problems lately, like lots. And, I'm thinking of selling my house because, we're all questioning, we're crying for help here, actually, and nobody's coming.
They have to figure this one out, right? They have to build the confidence. They have to build the expertise within their own council. That's their job and that's their mandate. And I want to see them do that. I don't care who's sitting there. I just want to make sure that they do their job.
One thing that does seem clear is that Ignace Council is divided. A release issued by the township states that 3 councillors have, quote, stepped in and taken a stern position to protect and enforce their obligations to protect employees. No clarification has been offered as to what that position is or what may have motivated their actions, with the town clerk saying the township's lawyers have advised council and administration not to comment on the matter. Meanwhile, in a Facebook post, Mayor Gascon asserted that he does not believe all councillors are doing their due diligence so they can make proper decisions that are in the best interest of the residents of this community. In another post, the mayor refers to difficulties in getting enough councillors to attend meetings and concerns that important opportunities could be missed. The statement issued by council included a commitment to bringing together all 5 council members for training on their roles and responsibilities. There's no indication so far as to when that might take place. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Nescantaga First Nation leaders were recently ejected from the provincial legislature. They were removed after shouting their displeasure at Minister Greg Rickford for his comments about the involvement of First Nations in resource development and mining. Once again, here's Lee Noonan with more.
Leaders and about 80 community members from 5 Northwestern Ontario First Nations traveled to Queen's Park for this press conference to demand the province respect their rights to free, prior, and informed consent regarding any development on their territory. Outgoing Nescantaga Chief Wayne Munoz and Chief-elect Christopher Munoz say their people will stand against the Northern Road Link and any other development that would affect the Attawapiskat River without their say-so.
It's about the way of life of our people. It's the very existence of our people. It's who we are as Anishinaabe people. And that's why it's so important that our people should have a big say. They should be able to determine what's going to happen.
What do you say to a guy that wants to say, I'm going to bulldoze your territory without your permission, without your free, prior, and informed consent? What do you say to that?
To refrain from this outburst, or you'll be asked to leave.
They were removed following comments from Minister of Indigenous Affairs Greg Rickford, who was responding to a question from Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa.
Their children, their grandchildren will have to drink the water downstream from these mines. Will this government promise today to gain their agreement rather than bulldozing over their lands and waters?
That's what a provincial government does, Mr. Speaker. We create the platforms for these kinds of resource activities to advance responsibly and safely, at the same time creating new opportunities, real opportunities for isolated communities that their members are asking me for every single day, Mr. Speaker.
Rickford did not directly respond when asked by Mamakwa if the government would end the practice of free stake mining. Grassy Narrows First Nation Chief Rudy Turtle says he's seen a dramatic increase in the number of mining claims in his territory since 2019, and particularly over the past year.
Our position is very clear. We don't want mining and development in our land.
Representatives from Wapakika, Kitchener-Mekusip, Ininiwuk, and Muskrat Dam were also present, all with concerns about the encroachment of resource extraction on their territories. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Starting this Saturday, the Ford government will discontinue health coverage for those without an OHIP card. An OHIP card hasn't been required throughout much of the pandemic, and as Mike Lang reports, healthcare providers in the region strongly disagree with the change, fearing the worst for vulnerable populations.
So I think it's completely unreasonable to ask physicians to subsidize the health care of people in this province.
Dryden physician Stephen Viher-Yoki's concern could become a reality. He says that many of those who don't have OHIP cards either live in remote communities, are part of vulnerable populations, or are non-Ontario residents. With the province cutting off coverage to those people, Viher-Yoki fears that the only way they can receive the care they need is if healthcare practitioners provide it on their own accord.
Relying on the goodwill of physicians who feel they need to provide care is inappropriate, and really the province should step up here.
In more populated areas like Thunder Bay, health centers must accommodate an even greater volume of impoverished patients. Norwest CEO Juanita Lawson says it's not easy for those in unstable living conditions to apply for and hold on to a health card.
Those are things that I think many of us take for granted, but those are also things that many individuals struggle with obtaining, even though we think that accessing health care is fairly simple. It's not for many people.
Registered midwife Rebecca Hautala says it will cause those patients to further delay treatment, leading to worse health outcomes.
Not having comprehensive health care for everybody is just really not equitable, and it's not okay. They suffer because of the long-term outcomes of not receiving care early enough that we can actually provide interventions to improve their health care, and their overall health in general is going to just cost the person, the community and society and the healthcare system more money eventually.
We would want some reconsideration with regards to this decision and some time for communities to be prepared to take a look at where uninsured funding can be placed, to look at expanding team care models to again support people who need this care.
The policy to provide health care only to those insured with an OHIP card takes effect on Saturday. Mike Lang, TBT News.
The Trudeau Liberals released their 2023 budget, and the lone opposition member from the Northwest is weighing in on it. Kenora MP Eric Melillo says his Conservative Party will not be supporting the budget. He argues that government spending and tax increases are driving inflation. However, as the Shadow Minister for Fednor, he did note that funding is included for all federal and economic development agencies.
It remains to be seen what percentage of that would come our way, but that's something I'll be watching closely. Of course, I also did notice as well, as has been the case in previous years, that Lake of the Woods has been included in terms of a sustainability and restoration fund that the government is working on. So those are certainly positive things, but of course, overall, it does remain a very high tax, high spending budget that I really think is going to make life more unaffordable for people that are facing 40-year inflation highs right now.
Oral health advocates had a chance to meet with a Liberal MP to discuss how the federal budget is benefiting the dental sector. Patty Haidu visited a Thunder Bay dentist office to highlight her government's newly announced dental care benefits. Celios Bellos reports.
The Liberals' 2023 federal budget comes with it some significant investments into dental care across the nation. Included in that is $13 billion over 5 years and more than $4 billion ongoing to implement the Canadian Dental Care Plan. It will provide dental care for uninsured families making less than $90,000 annually, with the rollout beginning this year. Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Haidu sat down with some local oral health advocates to help them better understand how these federal dollars could benefit the patients they serve.
It's an exciting time because it means that oral health, dental care is going to be considered just as essential as all the other kinds of health care that is covered under our universal health care system. To make sure that the ability to pay is not the defining feature of whether or not you can afford a healthy smile.
Working in dental, we do work with people that we see daily with barriers to funding, and that does prevent them from seeking dental care.
The funding is meant to build on the Canadian Dental Care Plan introduced last year. That provides parents with direct, upfront tax-free payments to cover dental care for children under 12. Local dentist Dr. Derville Clark says this, along with the new funding in this year's budget, means they can catch patient health concerns before they become serious.
Often you have to treat it with crowns or implants or big fillings and so on and so forth. A lot of those problems can be prevented with simple preventative oral care. And this is what I think that program allows. It allows a child to visit the dentist twice a year and catch problems before they really manifest into something that becomes more expensive.
Vasilios Bellos, TVT News.
After the break, the Indigenous Law and Justice Institute at the Lakehead University Law School hosted a special event. Welcome back. The Indigenous Law and Justice Institute at the Lakehead University Law School hosted a special event this week. Organizations such as Treaty 3 NAN Legal Services and Okiwan Tribal Council were invited to find out what their communities need in regards to Indigenous law revitalization. The conference included presentations to increase knowledge, understanding, and awareness of Indigenous laws and legal traditions, while keeping an open dialogue and listening to each community and their members' needs and concerns. The co-directors of the Indigenous Law and Justice Institute explained their goals for the gathering.
Just to share with them, we're hoping to host them, treat them well, and find out really what they want in their communities in terms of Indigenous law revitalization.
Really important for us not to be the drivers of the work, but for communities to be the drivers of the work. And so that's why we work in this way, which is to consult with community, see what they want and what they need, and then we go from there.
This was the first of these events, with more to follow. Sutherland says they were inspired by a similar conference they attended held by the Wakotewin Law and Governance Lodge, and they hope to build further on those teachings and community methods. The Ford government has made a historic investment into veterinary training in this region. The provincial budget released last week contains over $14 million for Lakehead University to collaborate with the University of Guelph to expand their vet program to LU. Mike Lang reports.
We're investing $14.7 million over the next 2 years for a new collaborative Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program with the University of Guelph and Lakehead University to address veterinary shortages in rural and northern communities.
The project announced by MPP Kevin Holland to area politicians will enable LU to enroll 20 students each year into the new veterinary training program, marking the first time the province has increased vet spaces in 35 years. The students will spend their first 2 years on the Lakehead campus and then complete their 3rd and 4th years at Guelph. LU President Moira McPherson says the desire for a vet partnership with Guelph was over 2 years in the making before they received the government funding.
We started growing from a seed into an actual idea, an initiative, and then we took that initiative to our internal teams and decided this was a great step forward for increasing vet capacity in Ontario and particularly in the north.
Most vet clinics in the Northwest are at or above capacity, which has forced many pet owners to drive for hours to find the nearest clinic that will accept new animal clients. NOMA President Wendy Landry has been lobbying the government for this veterinary program expansion for some time. The collaborative vet program will also support the agri-food sector by expanding the number of vets that can care for livestock.
That's something that we have been advocating too, goes along with our health services as well, right? So, and this is not just about pets. This is about agriculture. This is about farm animals. This is about that food supply, that food safety supply, all of that piece too. So happy to see that they heard us on that topic as well. And then we'll continue our advocacy too to have that program come to LU.
Just again, a huge thank you to the Government of Ontario. This was a crucial step in our ability to go forward with this exciting collaborative program with the University of Guelph.
The LU program is set to begin in the fall of 2024, and graduates can receive incentives to practice in underserviced areas such as the Northwest. Mike Lang, TBT News.
Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa says he was bored by the provincial budget. He says there's nothing there for the people in his riding.
It's the same thing that you keep on hearing without really any big investments into helping the rest of the people in Ontario.
The deputy leader of the official opposition says the budget fails to meet the needs of the moment. He wanted the government to address affordability, particularly in the north. Mamakwa doesn't think there is enough in the budget to fix an ailing healthcare system or address mental health and addictions. He also criticizes the province's approach to mining and the Ring of Fire.
They're focusing on that without talking to all First Nations. And, I think that's a very colonial approach when you try and divide and conquer First Nations. In the north and the Flying First Nations, there's nothing there. They just want our lands.
Mamakwa says that while the north is rich in resources, services aren't provided to address the unique challenges of life here. He wanted to see provisions for the safety of northern highways, for northern travel grants, and to address the climate change that is affecting the winter road season. Local MPP Lise Vaugeois questioned the Ford government about the province's new funding agreement with optometrists. One of that changes is that of September 1st. People aged 65 and older will be covered for only one eye exam every 18 months instead of once per year, unless they have conditions affecting their eyes such as macular degeneration, glaucoma, or diabetes. Health Minister Sylvia Jones says the change was made with advice from the Ontario Association of Optometrists and prioritizes seniors and others with the highest needs.
Currently, seniors can access an eye exam every 12 months, but under this government's new rules, they will have to wait 18 months to get an exam covered by OHIP. This is a move to push seniors into using privatized services that many seniors cannot afford, nor should they have to. To the Premier, why is this government jeopardizing seniors' health by reducing access to OHIP-covered eye care?
They worked very closely to ensure that we were looking at all of the services where they needed to be expanded, which of course we have expanded in appropriate areas like access to glaucoma, and also saying where are those investments and where do those pieces need to be? Is it a healthy 65-year-old who has no eye issues, or is it that young patient who has diabetes, that senior who has glaucoma?
And when we return, for the first time, a Kenora angler has won the Super Bowl of bass fishing. Welcome back, and like we were saying before the break, a Kenora angler has won the Super Bowl of bass fishing, taking home the Bassmaster Classic trophy in Tennessee. It's the first time a Canadian has won the high-profile tournament.
Oh, Canada, you have a Bassmaster Classic champion! A wire-to-wire win for Jeff Gustafson!
Jeff Gustafson, better known as Gussie, thought he'd blown it when the fish just wouldn't bite on day 3 of the tournament. But a commanding lead from the first 2 days carried him through, and he won the tournament with just 12 fish rather than the maximum 15. His total catch of smallmouth bass weighed in at 42 pounds 7 ounces, about a pound more than the nearest competitor. Gustafson says the win was the best moment of his fishing career.
Hey, that's like the number one dream that anyone who likes bass fishing or tournament fishing is that, getting that opportunity on that stage. And I guess just like, yeah, dreams can come true no matter, if you want to do something, then anything's possible. You got it right there.
Gustafson calls the trophy his Stanley Cup. It comes with $300,000 US in prize money, which Gustafson says will keep him on the road for a while. He used a 4-inch minnow imitator for the tournament, a technique he says is popular in northwestern Ontario. The province's Standing Committee on Justice Policy recently presented a report on bail reform at Queen's Park, responding to the shooting death of a young OPP constable last December. They made recommendations to both levels of government that would make bail harder to access for some gun-related charges and repeat offenders. Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa is the vice chair of that committee, but he has concerns about the process.
The hearings were very limited. It was only limited to 12 hours, and half of which were reserved for, police organizations.
With the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in jails, Mamakwa wanted a greater involvement of Indigenous stakeholders. 3 Indigenous organizations did make statements. Anishinaabe Legal Services, as well as the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, both warning that some of the recommendations would exacerbate the issue of over-incarceration, while the Anishinaabe Police Service supports the reforms, saying they could save lives. Mamakwa says he can see both sides, but that he wants an approach that addresses the underlying issues.
I think we need to be able to invest and, again, upstream on the proper mental health supports, addiction supports, and cultural supports for the people that are coming into the system.
The recommendations include significantly expanding reverse onus bail provisions and creating a legal definition of chronic offender. Mamakwa does support one recommendation aimed at ensuring more timely bail hearings. He says he'll also be pushing for increased legal and funding, and ultimately, he is calling for a more fulsome study on bail that looks at other possible reforms and considers the issues of over-incarceration. Thunder Bay OPP are investigating a major copper wire theft in Shunya. It happened last week in the new truck inspection station currently under construction along Highway 1117. Police were called to the site on March 21st to investigate the theft. OPP say unknown persons broke into a C-can storage container and the property and stole 12 large spools of copper wire valued at around $30,000. The Forensic Identification Unit attended the scene and collected evidence, and the investigation is still ongoing. Anyone with information is asked to contact the OPP. The new 5-lane inspection station and transfer rest stop are being built by the MTO at a cost of around $30 million. The project is expected to be completed sometime in the late summer. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.